My name's Richard O'Neill. I'm a storyteller and author, and I've tried to capture some of what we've been doing today. Some of you will recognize some of the things that were said in the room, but you won't be identified by name. There won't be any names, okay? And me being me, I probably couldn't remember them anyway. Story is really, really important because it's integral to our lives. You know, we are made of stories, I believe. If you want to know something about somebody or a place or a thing, you get a story about it and you get a better feel for it. And I can remember people saying years ago, you know, and even today, yeah, you could write a book about my life, mate. You could write a book about it. And you could. You can write a story. You could write a book. Everything I've heard today, I think you could write a whole series of books. It's been that interesting and that exciting. Now, I'm flying without an editor today. So I think, as I said to Lou before, I was making notes, notes and notes and notes and notes and notes and trying to get to the really, really important stuff. I hope what I've collected today inspires you to go on and create more of your stories. You're all creating stories, but I hope you go on and create even more stories about what you're doing, because it's fantastic. So what is a story to me? A story to me is a journey. I think we start somewhere, but it's not a linear journey because it never ends. It's a series of cycles. We go round. The story to me is a beautiful circular thing. And a lot of people talked about circles today, and that was lovely. But it's also a tapestry for me. It's the weave and the weft and the warp and all this beautiful tapestry, which is held together by so many different threads. And that's what a story is to me. It's not a flat thing. It's a beautiful, wonderful tapestry that you can hold up and see everything in it. And when it's about people, you can see everything in it. So what is it as well? Well, for me, it's a gift. We would say in my community, it's a gift from our heart to your heart. That's the quickest way to a person from A to B, we say, is with a story. So there were a lot of similar things that kept coming up today. And every time I heard it, I'm like, oh, ka-ching, ka-ching. It's like playing bingo. It was good bingo. And I'm like, yeah, they said that, they said that, they said that. And that's absolutely fantastic. Oh, I've just given somebody a metaphorical or a virtual kick up the arse, apparently, to write a blog. So that's not bad, just one paragraph in. That's excellent. What was coming out of the workshops for me was passion. And that was just amazing. People were passionate. It wasn't, well, yeah, look at this. Yeah, we want to do this and we've done that. And here's a picture of me in the local paper. It was about what you're doing, what you have done and what you want to do. And it was really, really passionate. So for me, that's what makes a story zing. And that's what we need to do, I think, with our stories. And that's what I was getting today. I was getting the zing. I was getting that passion. You know, when you're listening to, let's not call it gossip. Let's call it, interest. Yeah? You know, you listen to people talk. And then when I was a kid growing up, we had these older women and older men. And when they lowered their voices, and let's not say you're earwigging on a bus or something like that. But when the voices go down, that's the juicy bit, don't you? Turn those ears on. Even some people seem to turn their ears backwards. It's the juicy bits that we want. Let's get down to the good stuff. That's what storytelling does. It condenses all of the junky stuff. We get down to the real stuff, the real person, the real thing. Now, let's get on to this. So I'm not a cook, by the way, although I have been on Ready Steady Cook, but that, as they say, is another story. I didn't win. That tells you everything you need to know. The better the ingredients, though, I think the better the food, the better the meal at the end of it. That's what I've learned. So what am I really saying? I'm saying that if you create a good story, then it will allow other people to get to know what you're all about and what they're all about. So story, I think, allows you to show all of yourself, because that's what I've been seeing today. I haven't been seeing somebody with a job title saying, well, oh, yes, right, take the lead on this, and all of this sort of stuff. I'm seeing the whole of you. And I think that's what people we work with need to see. They need to see all of us. And story allows us to do that. Allows you to show all of yourself. So if you're sitting comfortably, then I'll begin. You always have to say that as a storyteller. You get in trouble. You get kicked out of society if you don't say it, I think. So for those people who are used to, and there's no such word as this, I just made it up this morning, linearity, right? Linearity. I don't think it's a real word, but if it is, well, that's brilliant. We'll be starting at the end. So there's a warning. So spoiler alert, or whatever you want to call it. We're going to start this story that we've done today at the end. And there's probably a few people think, well, that's not right. That's not the way to do it. Can't quite do that. Well, let's just see, shall we? let me illustrate it with a little story, right? Okay, so you're in the pub. Do you remember the pubs? You used to go to pubs and you'd be with your friends. And what would happen is people would not turn up at the arranged time. So there'll probably be an organizer in your group. There's usually one in every group. And you would say, let's all meet in the pub around 7. It's never 7, is it? There's never somebody in there going, well, it's 3 minutes past 7, you know, and we said we was going to start at 7. People just come in when they feel like it around 7. And then what you do is you put yourself in a big circle. If enough people use it, it becomes a real word. Let's use that linearity. Brilliant. Fantastic. Put that on Twitter. Now, we've got this big group of people coming in and they start taking chairs. It goes, beep, beep. Oh, is that anybody's chair? I'll take that chair. I'll take that chair. It is a real word. Thank you, Audrey. Excellent. So now we've got this big group of people and you're all sitting in a circle. And what happens is somebody will maybe take the lead on their story and they'll say, oh, you know, they don't start, do they, by showing a PowerPoint on the wall of the pub going, well, yeah, let me tell you about my week. Now, Monday, this is 9 a.m. Monday, and let me take you through and show you all the pictures. They don't do that. They go, oh, you'll never guess what happened to me on Monday. And then they go, well, it's not Monday, actually, is it? This started on Saturday. This started on Saturday. And when we're storytelling, we zigzag all over the place like we do as real humans. That's what people do, okay? Oh, there's somebody just said they didn't think they'd miss scouring for spare chairs in the pub till today. Oh, well, you see, you never know what you've got till it's gone. Yeah, so there you go. So we meet it, you know, story might teach us about taking those things like a pub chair, you know, not for granted, and really appreciate it. So that's a little bit of an explanation, so I'm jumping out of the story, but that's what we can do. Stories can zig around, and as long as we keep going and people know, think you know what you're doing, everything's fine, and we're all there, okay? I think storytelling is the quickest way to understanding. So let me present, oh, I ripped a bit of paper there, don't mind. Let me present the story that I have created for you from all of your lovely work and my listening this afternoon. So I want you to imagine we're in the most amazing FE setting. Okay, it's everything you want. Now, if you wanted a sort of a waterfall coming through it, it's got that. Let your imagination go wild. You know, it might have a Costa coffee shop in there. Maybe you've got one already. I don't know. Whatever you want in your ideal FE setting, there it is. So let's get transported. Let's go like on the films. We'll transport you to that. Okay, and there's someone talking, and they say, "Good afternoon, and welcome to our little celebration of being named of the best FE setting in the whole of the country." Oh, well, how did we achieve this? How did this happen? Well, I need to take you back in time. So we're going to go back in time, but then there's one person with a little voice, or a big voice, and put their hand up and they say, excuse me, you didn't introduce yourself or your job title. Well, the person doesn't break their stride. They just say, well, you know, rather than tell you that, why don't you spend some time working out which is the top of a circle and then come back and tell me. But in the meantime, I'll carry on. So they carry on and they say, 10 years ago, our APs started their not so quiet revolution. They were causes of good trouble. Their symbol was a circle. You see, they understood that there are very few straight lines in education. They realized that very little learning came from success. Most learning comes from failure. Now, we have the circle of life, and we have all of these circles, and that's what we used. Now, let's take a tour of the conference. But before we start taking a tour of this conference that was held 10 years ago, we need to remind you that fun is mandatory. Fun is mandatory, okay? And we get transported back into that time. So here we are in a room full of hope and optimism. As you can see, there are people here reimagining the future. They are telling stories about the future, and they are listening to the stories of people they serve. Stories about customers being nicked. Now, here's a little story that someone will tell you in there. Someone opened up as competition down the road and started to see all of their learners being taken away, rather than sit there and the person go, oh no, 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 we're the best place on the planet and these people must be horrible. They decided that maybe this is a lesson. Maybe this is something to learn. Maybe we need to up our game. Maybe we need to change things. Maybe it's us and not them. And you know, by doing that, they turned things around. So from failure came success. They weren't learning much from success, but they were learning a lot from failure. Now, come and join me in this room as we step into the arena with the warrior woman. No, don't worry, don't worry. She's not carrying any weapons. She's a warrior of goo. A warrior of goo. And if you don't know what a warrior of goo is, I didn't know till today, but a warrior of goo is someone who uses their lovely gooiness and niceness and vulnerability. That gives them courage to challenge anything out there. You see, because we learned in this FE College of the Future that goo is the secret weapon. Lou, the warrior of goo, somebody has written there. How did you know her name? It's absolutely true. Right, Rue. Lou, shall I say. Now, this person would step into the arena with courage and goo. Now, let's go into another room where we need to have a clearer view, because you see, when we go back into the past and we look at it with really good eyes, we get a really clear view. It's like standing on top of the mountain. We can see the whole thing. Now, if I put my old face up to your screen like this, you might start moving backwards. Look really close at things and see how blurry they become. But you see, what we learned there was that we have to move back to get a clearer view. You do not get a clearer view by going straight up to something. You have to come backwards. You could actually see more. And then what you see very often when you move back is your purpose, because you see the purpose drove us to this future. The imagination manifested some of this future, but then the purpose. And then what we did, we turned our focus onto the classroom, because as good and as important as everything else was around the outside, it was what actually happened in the classroom was the most important thing. That's the engine that should drive everything. The finest car in the world will not go anywhere without an engine, and the classroom should be the engine. That's where the magic happens. And then we moved on to the agents of change. You see, the agents of change, not for change. We heard them as agent of change, because these agents of change, they were all agents of change. They were on the same journey because they had this purpose. They had this passion. They had goo, of course, secret of goo. They had all of that. But you see, they reflected on their failures. And they didn't force people to have training. No, they didn't say, you must have this training like a load of sheep going into a sheep dip. They said to these people, what kind of training do you think you need? They empowered them. And all of our people were empowered to move towards the future, not be poked towards the future, not run away from the past, but to be empowered to move towards the future. Now, they reflected and they shared. And then we moved on to the evaluation, co-evaluation. And we thought about a skills palette. Now, life is full of color. Color is the most wonderful thing. It's what differentiates. Without the dark, we can't know the light. And without the light, we can't know the dark. And without the green, we can't know the brown, and so on. So why not paint your life with the biggest, widest, brightest, most vibrant palette that you can? It's all there. It's like a buffet, an all-you-can-paint buffet of color. And why would you not use all of those colors? You see, things were non-linear. We didn't think we are going to take this straight route like going down a motorway, an M1, an M6, an M62, an M58, because that's boring. And the problem when you get on a motorway, if you go past the turnoff, you cannot get back off until the next turnoff. But when you're on a lovely twisty road, there's always somewhere to turn around and go back. And you never go too far before you can come back. It's a lovely, lovely way of moving, slowly but purposefully. Now, the other thing was we realized with the co-evaluations was that it's about relationships. Everything is about relationships. The relationships between you and your students, the relationships between you and your fellow workers, the relationships between everybody in your community. And that's really, really important. So this is what brings me back to where we started. This is how we became this amazing FE college. The little voice piped up again. But how did you do it? Where's the data? Let's take a walk, was the reply. Let's take a walk around this place and let's see the data. Let's see it. Let's see data in action. And let's also feel and experience the culture. Because we believe that culture is much more important than the data. Now, that brings us to the end of our little story. And I believe that when you think about something and you tell stories about it and you share your successes and you share your failures constantly, then we all know where we're going. No one is left behind. The voices I've heard today have been big, small, in between. The accents have been so different. It's wonderful. But today, I think the reason why this conference has worked is because everybody has been moving. We're all on the same journey. This group of people traveling along and each doing what they can to move things forward. In my community, very often, because of media, how it's been portrayed, people have always asked for the leader of the tribe, the leader of the group, the head man, because it was on Midsummer Murders once. And they say, who's the leader? Who's in charge? And our answer would always be, depends what you want. Depends. We don't have a hierarchy here. Depends what you want. If it's something to do with letter writing, it'll be her. She's got the best education. If it's something to do with horses, it'll be him. He knows horses. If it's something to do with technology, it'll be that 8-year-old kid there. And that, for me, is how we move forward and we include everybody. And we don't get these hierarchies. Because for anybody who's ever got a new phone and they've had to get a 5 or a 6 or a 7-year-old, as I have done with my grandson, to work it out for me, you know who's in charge, you know who's the leader at that point. Leadership should be, I believe, something that changes. Whoever is the best leader at that time takes over. And that's what I've seen today. I've seen people, and myself included, not knowing exactly how the technology is, and somebody's just come in and said, well, I'll do that bit. I'll do that bit for you, but you're good at that. And that, for me, is exactly how it works. We've got this beautiful, great big wheel, this lovely circular wheel that is moving forwards beautifully. It's rolling along. And again, you know, in my community would say it translates as circles move and lines drag.